Yeah.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Sean McVeigh, National Training Coordinator for the Soil Science Division located in Lincoln, Nebraska. I want to welcome you to today's webinar on Technical Soil Services and Update. Our presenter today is Dr. Michael Robotham, National Leader for Technical Soil Services. Before we get started in our webinar, I just want to remind people that the way you look at a larger screen on the webinar is you click on the icon that does full screen. It's 4 arrows pointing to 4 corners, and that'll enlarge it just on your computer. And then to shrink it back down, push your cursor up to the top of the screen, and that icon will reappear, and you can click on it and make it smaller again. We do have a lot of questions that have been submitted for Mike to answer today, and we're going to answer those before we get to any others that are new questions. Although, if any questions you do answer in the Q&A, we'll certainly capture those, and Mike or someone on his staff will follow up with you. We'll answer as many questions as we can in the time we have, but we're going to first in line process here, and so the ones that were submitted ahead of time will get answered first. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted to our National Soil Survey Center YouTube channel within the coming week. All right, Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Welcome, everybody. Glad to see you. I appreciate you taking the time. I know everybody's super busy, and we always appreciate folks taking the time to attend these webinars. What I want to do today, you obviously know who I am. Sean says our new remote's working, so I'm going to try this. Ooh, hey, it's working. Give you a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. Basically, we've got 5 topics to cover. I'm going to talk a little bit about the release of the final TSS Activities Report. We had a preview of this in the last webinar back in October, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. But I do want to highlight a couple things that came out, and just to make sure everyone was aware that that report has been officially released. We are going to talk a little bit about TSS reporting for 2015, provide some reminders of best practice and what we'd really like to see and how we can make the 2015 report bigger and better. I also ran a quick first quarter summary report at the request of a couple of people, and so I can present some preliminary results from the first quarter. The third section I'll talk about is some of the national TSS priority projects that are going on. We'll follow that with a discussion of some upcoming cooperative and collaborative activities that are happening at the national level, but will have impact for folks at the regional, state, and field level in the upcoming year or two. And last but not least, as Sean mentioned, I received some questions from the field. We'll get to those first. Feel free to submit your questions online. And what I was just talking with Sean before this, and we'll get to the ones we can. If we run out of time and we do only have an hour, what Sean says that's easy to do is he can copy that whole question string. My staff and I will look through that. We'll develop some answers, and we'll get that back out to everybody, probably as some sort of FAQ on the Technical Soil Services SharePoint site, coupled with an email to all the state soil scientists and the regional directors. So again, that's where we're headed. And without further ado, we'll get right to it. The 2014 Activities Report, you may or may not have seen the National Bulletin. You, of course, all follow all national bulletins when they come out and keep careful track of the ones that apply to you. Yeah, right. In case you hadn't noticed or somebody hadn't told you, the official TSS 2014 report was released on the 19th of February. That's basically a week ago today as National Bulletin 430-15-4. So somebody may be asking you about it as it is now an official document. The report summarizes the assistance as reported using the NASA-based reporting system. That's all I got, folks. If you did other stuff and it wasn't reported in NASA, more power to you, but all I've got for the national report is what was in the database. Keep in mind that reporting is no longer voluntary in 2015 for Soil Science Division affiliated staff, as per Roy Vick. Any questions or comments? That would be roy.vick@WDC. No. The reporting is and will remain voluntary for state and area affiliated staff. It helps me do the national report, but it's up to you folks. I will say that, and as I've said many times, this activities report is extremely useful at the national level to document the great work that's being done in the field to support the agency and outside customers. It's the tool I have as National Leader for Technical Soil Services to sell the TSS program at the highest levels at NHQ And numbers matter, pictures matter, and we need to sell what we do. We need to show the higher ups that what we do is important, and we do a heck of a lot of it. I'm just going to throw a few graphs up. You can refer to the report. I'm not going to dwell on these. The graph contains a number of reports. This one is the instances of TSS by state and area. As you can see, that's all over. That reflects several things. It reflects differences in reporting. It reflects differences in workload. Big states have more workload. Certain states have more TSS needs and activities going on than other states. So again, this is for those of you who have really tall bars, this is something you can brag to your state con about. For those of you who have smaller ones, that's a lot of the smaller states. It's also states that perhaps are keeping track of their TSS activities in a different way. And as I've said, how you keep track of them is up to you, but I've got to use what I've got for the national report. This is the just a simple pie chart of the types of activities that that are being conducted nationwide. This has been very steady over the 4 years that we've been doing the national report. The dominant categories remain technical consultations, which is that catch-all for pretty much all the miscellaneous questions folks get. On-site wetland determinations, delineations, and appeals are big, particularly in the Central Plains and other areas where wetlands are a big deal. State and area level support for conservation operations, creating custom information, HEL, public education. You can walk through those. Again, this varies state by state, depending on state priorities, state needs. But at the national level, this has been remarkably consistent over the past 4 years. One report I ran this year that I had not run in past years was a report on the programs supported. We're getting asked, how are we as soil scientists supporting the program, and to no one's great surprise, the vast majority of support that we as soil scientists provide to the agency is in the realm of CTA. That's, I've explained why you're surprised about this. I certainly wasn't. 83% of the support provided falls under sort of that general CTA. Another 4% is FPPA, another 4% is NRI. Those are actually both CTA activities, so I added it all up, and just over 90% of the activities reported in NASIS by soil scientists were supported the CTA program. EQIP was the largest Farm Bill program supported. Again, no surprise there, it's the largest Farm Bill program. Additional support for WRP, CRP, and a smattering of other programs. This graph is one I love to show for the people in DC because it shows, you like graphs that show we're doing more of something, and it's so as you can see from this graph, reported TSS activities have increased steadily over the past 4 years. I think this is basically because people are reporting better. I don't think you guys have all of a sudden, a whole bunch of more work has magically appeared out there, but I do appreciate the fact that folks are reporting it. And this does make a good story to tell about, we can now report well over 35,000 instances nationwide of TSS activity, and that's a good number. That's a nice number, and that's a good number to be able to hang our hat on it. I'd like to see that, larger again for 2015. Key points I mentioned, about just over 35,000 reports of instances. Assistance provided by soil scientists affiliated with both the division and with states and areas. Report instances continue to increase. I suspect that's more better reporting, but maybe more is being done as well. I am fully aware, and if you read when you read the 2014 report, you'll see a paragraph that talks about the limitations of using instances as a metric, and I'm fully aware that that metric has its issues. Basically, you count everything as one. The 15-minute phone call and the 8-hour and the 2-day wetland determination both count the same, and there's something that might maybe that's something quote unquote unfair about that. What we are doing for 2015 to attempt to remedy that situation is that we've worked with the folks, and there is now an hours field in the version in NASIS, and we are requesting that folks report both instances and total hours for a given TSS entry. Hopefully that will give us a supplemental metric so we can report the number of incidences. We can also report the number of hours. Keep in mind, this is not going to be cross-referenced to WebTCAS. So don't panic if those hours don't match. We're talking about approximate numbers here. WebTCAS is what you get paid. So deal with those accordingly. That's a nice segue into 15 reminders. I just mentioned the addition of the hours metric. One of the other changes that was made in the NASA's TSS table was we pushed all of the mandatory information into the parent table. So state is now in the parent table. It's not, you don't have to populate an overlap table. You can if you want. If you want to populate the site overlap table, go for it. And you can choose county, you can choose anything else that's useful to you at the state level or the regional level. You can choose MLRA. But for national reporting, state's the key. We have updated the guidance documents. Those are available on the TSS SharePoint. I'll put that URL up later. And I mentioned this in our webinar in October. Kevin Godsey and out of Missouri has developed a TSS reporting assistant spreadsheet. This is an Excel spreadsheet. You can enter your information in Excel, and then one person in the office can then periodically upload that information into NASAS. I know that's being used extensively in Missouri. Some other states have asked me for copies, and it is available on the SharePoint. If others are using it and experiencing success, please let me know. If there are issues, please contact me, and I'll get in touch with Kevin, and we'll get your issues fixed. Just a reminder, the minimum national reporting criteria are the date completed. The reason I need the date is that gets it in the right fiscal year. The TSS activity type, to make that cool pie chart I put up there a minute ago. The instances are assumed to be one if left blank. I'd appreciate you populating it just because it saves me one step when I'm putting together the report. Total hours for that entry, just mentioned that. For clarification, if you report 8 instances, so a lot of people like to report particularly technical consultations on one line, and they want to report the consultations they had over, say, a 2-week period. Enter the end date of that 2-week period. Enter the number of consultations, say that's 10. Say they all took you half an hour. Enter 5 hours. 10 consultations times half an hour apiece, total of 5 hours. So I'd like that hours field to be the total hours. Your username is automatically populated. Please enter the recipient and the program benefited. We are increasingly being asked about our impact on programs, so please do that. And then obviously the state, because I can't tell what states you're in if I don't have your state. I have a little note to myself here to remind folks that just like conservation practices, for those of you who are familiar with conservation practices, you must meet the minimum national criteria. Should your state or area decide to add additional criteria for what constitutes an appropriate TSS report, you are free to do so. However, you may not subtract from the national criteria. So folks, appreciate that, folks. I know some states and areas have added additional criteria. Some states are interested in service provided by county, for instance. That's perfectly valid, and I understand that. I don't need that for the national report, but if you and your state want to do that to increase the value of your state report, then by all means go for it. There are some resources to help. Paul put together a wonderful YouTube video tutorial that's on the whole list of NASAS related YouTube videos that Paul's done. It's a great tool. There's also we also updated the helpful hints document, and that's available on the TSS SharePoint. So, and you can always contact me if you're really stuck. As requested by a couple of folks, and you know who you are, I did run a 2015 first quarter snapshot. As is expected in our world of reporting, reporting is low in the first quarter. Reporting is always low in the first quarter. Please report regularly and don't report everything in the fourth quarter. You'll make your life easier. You'll make my mid-year report look a lot better. But I know how it goes. I did notice when I was writing the quarterly report that of the roughly 2,400 entries that had been entered for the first quarter, 50 of those were missing the state. And about a little over 350 of them, so a bit over 15%, we're missing the hours. If you could double check your entries, we're still early enough in the year that you probably don't have a lot of them in yet. If you could double check your entries and fill those in and make sure they're complete, that's a whole lot easier than trying to backtrack and finish it up on the 15th of September when you're frantically trying to finish all the rest of your end of the year stuff. Activity types in the first quarter are similar to previous years. What I did notice was there is an increase in documented NRI support. I think that's because the on-site grazing land inventory has kicked in, and also NRI has been doing some more intensive stuff in the fall. There were a number of NRI requests that came out. That just sort of comes out in the wash by the end of the year. And as per previous years, the majority of support is related to CTA. All I ask is that you continue to look at opportunities to provide support for Farm Bill programs and document that. Examples, wetland determinations that are required for EQIP eligibility, on-site soils investigation for an edible waste lagoon that's going to be paid for by EQIP dollars, verification of that this area has hydric soils, so they're eligible for the ACEP program, which is the successor to WIP and to WRP. Providing information to FSA to support CRP rankings. Well, that supports CRP. Or providing soils information if your state is looking at updating the cost list and you're providing soils information that helps inform decisions to update the cost list. Be sure that gets credited as support for EQIP. So again, if you have any questions, just give me a call. Keep in mind that, and this is for TSS reporting purposes. And I'll mention this later in response to somebody's question, but code your time as per guidance you receive from your regional director if you work for the Soil Science Division, or from the appropriate folks in your state if you work for the state. Don't let me tell you how to code your web TCAS. You got people for that. And if your budget officer says code it this way, then by all means code it that way. You can report it in NASAS, to reflect what may reflect a little better what's happening in the field. But if your budget officer says code X, then don't say, well, the national leader for TSS told me to. Yeah, please don't. I want to take just a very brief gap, and I put a reporting questions in everything. I'd like to skip over that. If you do have questions about reporting, I'd like to come back to those later. Just so we can make sure we get to the questions that people submitted. So if you could hold those questions, and we'll roll on into the next topic. The next topic is 2015, just where we're headed and some friendly reminders. We talked in October about a TSS business plan and the advisability of having one. As we sit here on the 26th of February, I hope you have one. But bear in mind, if you don't have one, it's never too late. So you might want to think about putting together some sort of bare bones business plan. What we're talking about when we talk about a TSS business plan is that you identify your projected activities for the year. It's as simple as that. What needs to be done? When does it need to be done? And what are the resources required to get it done? It's nothing more complicated than that. Some people do that in paragraphs. Some people do that on spreadsheets. Some people do that in 20-page documents. Everybody's got a different style, and everybody's got what works for them. The business plan is a cooperative effort. Your TSS business plan, if you're a state soil scientist or on the state staff, should tie to your state business plan. I would like to see, and the mantra from all of us at the national level is we would like to see coordination between state programs and regional programs. That's how we all move ahead. Regular communication is the key to making this work. And I will pound on that table until my hand gets sore. But where we have regular communication, and I hear from people all over the country, where we have regular communication, stuff seems to be working. Where that communication doesn't seem to be happening or isn't happening as often, things seem to be breaking down. So I'll come back to that. Folks, we got to talk. Point over and over and over again until I'm blue in the face. I do just want to highlight a handful of things that are going on at the national level that may be of interest. The biggest one from a big picture, broad brush standpoint is that 2015 is the International Year of Soils, or of the soil. I've heard both. The IYS in parlance. This is designated by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN. It's a big deal. Lots of stuff is going on internationally, and we want to be a part of that in the U.S. A couple announcements I did want to make. More calendars are available. We actually ran out of soils calendars this year. I think it was the first time in ages that we've run out of soils calendars, so they put in another order. And the National Distribution Center in Iowa has more calendars now. So if you are doing something in your state and you're out of your supply, feel free to order some more. It's not an unlimited supply, and we are already in February, but they are available if you need those for something going on in your state. I also wanted to announce, in case the word hadn't gotten out, that Amy Overstreet, some of you may have met Amy in some of the earlier things that were going on with International Year of Soils. Amy is now the PAS in Vermont. She moved up there from South Carolina and is probably still cold, but is doing well, she said. We, Soil Science Division, were able to keep Amy on to keep part of her time for the remainder of this year to be that key public affairs outreach contact person for International Year of Soils related stuff. If you haven't had the pleasure of working with Amy yet, she is wonderful to work with and is a point of contact for if you're working in your state, you're working with your PAS is wondering, what to do, how they might help. Amy's a wonderful point of contact for you or for that public affairs specialist to talk about how you might, further promote soils and International Year of Soils in your state. So use that resource. We've only got our time till the end of the year. Then she goes back to Vermont full time, so we got to take full advantage of what we got while we got it. I wanted to highlight just a handful of things that we, the national staff, i.e. me, Linda, and Lenore, are working on this year, just to give you a heads up. We are planning to move forward with review and update of the Technical Soil Services Handbook. It's been about 5 years now since that was updated, so it's about time. One thing Lenore did that was extremely helpful and extremely valuable was during the web migration, all the web links broke. And so Lenore went in, fixed all the links, worked with the folks here at the center, Tammy Umholtz, to get it reposted. So the version on the web now has all the links work in the current version on the web. She didn't change any content, but at least we got the links working again. We have put forward an official request for comments and for volunteers. And that request is working its way through channels. The way things are being done with the agency right now is that any request that asks for someone's time, even on a voluntary basis, needs to be routed through the state conservationist. That is a process. We've submitted all the necessary paperwork to the national office, and that's working its way through. We hope to have that announced. We hope that announcement's going to hit your state conservationist's email anytime. The second project I'd like to highlight is a project related to hydric soils, and specifically hydric soil indicators. I'm looking at Steve Monteith, who's on the National Technical Committee for Hydric Soils, who's sitting here in the room. This involves an indicator called red parent material. This has been somewhat disputed, is the sense I get, about the application of it. And Marty Rabenhorst, who's a longtime soil scientist at the University of Maryland and one of the national gurus of the hydric soils world, has gotten a grad student and wants to settle this once and for all. He has requested assistance from soil scientists. Again, because assistance is requested, we're working this through national to look for people in the field, both from the soil science side of the fence, but also from the state soil scientists, resource soil scientists, who are interested in helping Dr. Rabenhorst and his graduate student collect some samples, do some measurements, and hopefully settle this whole red parent material issue once and for all. Or at least put Steve is laughing here. Maybe put it to bed a little bit. So again, keep an eye out for that, particularly if you're in an area where a red parent material has been brought up as an issue. The third thing I'd like to highlight is that soil staff, particularly me and Linda, I have been asked to take a greater role in what's called the core team for the Resource Stewardship Framework. The Resource Stewardship Framework is a major initiative coming out of the Chief's office to look at how we as NRCS can provide a systematic way to document that cooperators are meeting standards, are addressing resource concerns to a set of documentable standards. They found, and we were very happy to hear this, they came to us. They found that soils information was becoming something they needed, and they came to us at the national level. The Resource Stewardship Framework and the tools associated with it are being pilot tested in 4 states now, 3 states? 4 states. In 4 states now, and that pilot test is going to be expanding to 10 states. I can't name them off the top of my head, but this may be coming to your state in the near future. If it is, be aware. Let us know if you come up with soils issues. We've indicated to the group that they need to be in contact with the state soil scientist if there are issues with the soils data that are causing trouble with the tools. Please let us know if those issues are coming up at the national level, so we're at the national level, and we'd appreciate your involvement at the local level. The final piece is just a quick update on the idea of Soils Job Approval Authority, which we've discussed before. Again, we're working on a framework. The Ecological Sciences staff have just put together a proposal that is being considered at the highest levels for job approval authority for some of the ecological standards. I think this is primarily related to the biologists, but maybe related to some other things as well. So we've been working very closely with them on what the process they followed, what they developed, what their proposal looks like, in the attempt not to reinvent the wheel. And so we're moving forward with that. We will be requesting, and we do intend to request input. We just aren't at the point where we really know what we're asking you for yet. So again, stay tuned and we'll be in touch. I specifically wanted to highlight 2 large national projects that will be coming online initially here in 2015 and then full bore in 2016 that you need to be aware of, and there is ample opportunity for involvement. The first of those projects is the NEON project. NEON stands for the National Ecological Observatory Network. What that is, according to their website, is a continental scale observation system for examining ecological change over time. Sounds like a darn good idea to me. This network consists of sites distributed throughout the United States. It is a long-term monitoring project. They're talking about 30 years at a minimum and potentially going longer than that. It has open data, and it is founded on the principle of open data access, that any and all data collected on these sites will be available for anybody who wants to use it. So they're definitely getting a big data approach, an open data approach to get the maximum information, the maximum impact. This is funded by National Science Foundation money at its core, but involves collaboration with, pretty much the alphabet soup of federal agencies that are involved in resource management. The NRCS Soil Science Division has contracted, and I'm looking at John, and I think we're almost officially contracted, to provide soils assistance in the startup phase that will involve sampling and lab analysis of these NEON sites. There are tremendous opportunities moving forward for collaboration for regional, MLRA, state, and area staff. And I urge you to be proactive, to get on the website. You can see the link here, or just a simple Google search. And you can find the map of the sites. You can find the contact for the site or sites in your area. From a TSS perspective, these sites seem to be marvelous opportunities for a variety of things, for monitoring, for education, for outreach, potentially for demonstration. So there's a lot of opportunity the sky's the limit, basically, with how you might be able to collaborate with groups working on these sites locally to you. So, nothing formal is set up at the national level beyond the soil assistance at the startup phase and a general intent to collaborate. But based on our discussions at the national level with the NEON national staff, they are 100% in favor of collaborative activities of any and all types. So as I say, get in touch with the local folks who are running the site near you and get that conversation started. The other national effort that I want to give everybody a heads up on is the National Wetland Conditioning Assessment, or NWCA project. This is, as you may suspect, the second round of the National Wetland Assessment that was done in 2011. EPA is mandated by statute to do this every 5 years. So there will be the 2021 one too, unless Congress steps in and says, don't do it anymore. This is 1,000 sites nationwide. The primary sampling is conducted by state agencies with EPA funding. Some state agencies hired their own used their own people. Some state agencies hired university people. Some state agencies contracted out, but that's the state's decision. NRCS Soil Science Division provided training and laboratory assistance for the first one in 2011, and we did such a bang-up job that EPA came asking us if we could provide the same level of assistance in 2016. We are working right now. We have a verbal agreement to do that at this point and are working on the scope of work for how that would work. As part of that verbal agreement, NRCS has agreed to conduct more intensive sampling at selected sites in 2016. That will be an effort coordinated by the Soil Science Division, by the regions and the MLRA soil survey offices. That is the devil, the details are to be determined. How many sites, which sites, when sampling will take place. That's all. All this sampling will take place in the summer of 2016. So that's approximately 15 to 18 months from now. So we've got some time. But I just want to give you a heads up that this is coming down the pike. I know that state level participation in 2011 was all over the map. Some states were very closely involved. I'm looking at Dan Shurtleff here in Nebraska across the table, and I know that Dan and some other folks from the state of Nebraska were very closely involved. I know other states there was very limited involvement. It really depended on the level of collaboration between the state partner, typically the Department of Environmental Quality or equivalent, and the state soil scientist and his or her staff. Moving forward in 2016, those aspects of coordination with the local partner and the state soil scientist and the state and area staff are completely the purview of the state soil scientist and their staff. We made no commitment from national for people's time. We made no commitment that there wouldn't be people's time. That is completely up to you and depends on local resources, local priorities, and that local request from your collaborating agency. We are happy to support you in that. We're happy to provide any support we can at the national level, but that is going to depend on how you want to work with that local agency, and that's up to you. We encourage it. I think this is a marvelous project. It provides the reason the Soil Science Division has put forward the intent to conduct more intensive sampling at selected sites is that hydric soils are a huge issue. They're a gap in our current database, and they make a big difference, and they're very important for a lot of reasons, both legal and also when we look at carbon storage. We look at landscape hydrologic processes. We look at all kinds of things. Those wetland areas and the hydric soils they're in play a major role. And so learning more about them, the division made the decision. Learning more about those was a reason to chip in some Soil Science Division time. You need to make that decision for yourself, but state staff need to make that decision for themselves, consultation with your state con at the local level. Okay. Enough said about that. Just wanted to remind everybody about the resources you have available. We're a small staff, but we're good people at the national level. All kidding aside, I couldn't have asked for two more competent and skilled and helpful and willing to do whatever needs to be done people than the two people I have on my staff, Linda Sheffy and Lenore. I just can't say enough about what a pleasure it is to run the program with them as my two key technical people, and let them help you. Let them help you. and call any one of us. This slide has kind of a rough division of how we divide up the world, but call any of the three of us, and if you're not at the right place, we'll get you to the right place. So other resources, I mentioned the TSS handbook already, the TSSH handbook, TSSH or the TSS handbook. That does provide a really good overview of TSS, I think. I mean, it's a little dated. It is 5 years old, but it's, a lot of stuff hadn't changed much. So it has links to policies and other supporting documents, and I mentioned those are all updated. Thanks again, Lenore, for getting that done. We know we need to fix some things. I'm looking at Ken Sheffy here, and I know they've done a lot of work on the National Soil Survey Handbook, and so some of the references maybe don't quite notch right, and that's one of the things we want to work on this year is getting those things all coordinated. Another great resource that people may not be aware of is the TSS SharePoint site. The link is here in the email. There's also a link to it from the Soils Division SharePoint. There are a lot of resources there already, and the plan is to continue to expand. I just posted a couple things up there this past week. One was a set of materials on the various ways we have within our system of getting information out. So that includes USDA Connect, the Gov Delivery, and how you can make use of those. Tammy Cheever here at the National Soil Survey Center, who you may know from dealing with the Soils Hotline. Tammy put that together as a resource, so I posted that for anybody who's interested. I've posted various newsletters as they come in, as groups are doing. I know a number of you are doing newsletters. I posted those as they come across my desk. There's also other things that are posted up there. I encourage you, anybody who's doing TSS. We've got wide access to the site, and if you don't have access, just ask and we'll get you access. If you have something you've put together, if you have some outreach materials, if you have a project, if you have something you'd like to share, please post it to the site and either put a little note up in the announcement section that you posted something, or send an email to me and I'll send out an email to everybody letting everybody know, or I'll post an announcement. I'd like to make this a venue where we can share information. One of the other things that's posted up there, and we'll talk a bit, one of the questions we got was about resource soil scientists. We posted resource soil scientist PDs up there, example PDs. We posted a list of questions that one of our state soil scientists, when he was putting together that announcement, you have to develop those questions. We posted that list up there, so that if you're in that situation, you got something to start with. So like I say, I really like this to be a mechanism to share information. One of the things we haven't explored, there's a SharePoint ability to have discussions. I haven't really played around with that, but if somebody wants to start one and get the word out, I'm game. So let's see if we can't make use of this tool. Okay, that's enough of the announcements and the information part of this session. What I want to shift to now is to go through the questions that were submitted in advance, and thank you folks for doing that. And then what we'll do, like I say, once we get through the questions that were submitted, we'll take any questions that are submitted during this. And again, if you submit a question now and we can't get to it, we'll make sure we get you an answer. Ooh, okay. And why doesn't it want to change? Okay, my remote has gone kaflooski. Okay, Sean steps in. Sean steps in with a mouse.
Old trusty.
With the old trusty mouse. Okay, first question in no particular order was, is there an NRCS policy about providing technical soil services in urban areas? The real short answer is no, there isn't. But the longer answer is that it certainly fits under our overall legislative mandate. We have a mandate to provide soils information to inform land use. Last I checked, urban was a land use. And I personally think it's a great opportunity. If that's an issue in your area and people are asking for your help, go for it. Okay, second question. Who should be included on the technical teams and management teams from state and area office staff? You can refer to, and I made the mistake of asking Ken where this was mentioned in the National Soil Survey Handbook, and he gave me about 5 different places. But to briefly summarize what's in the National Soil Survey Handbook, the technical team, the primary soil representative from the state and area staff on the technical team for the MLRA Soil Survey Office is envisioned to be the area resource soil scientist or scientists who are located in the area covered by that MLRA SSO. Fair enough. There's also a mention in the handbook that other technical specialists should participate as appropriate. So if something's happening that's dealing with agronomic interpretations, you might want to bring in the agronomist, or if it's going to affect wildlife, you might want to bring in the biologist. That's completely up to folks. Again, communication's key. On the management team at the soil survey regional level, it's explicitly stated that the state soil scientist in the area covered by the soil survey region shall be a member of the management team. Again, there are provisions in the handbook to bring in other people as needed. You may need the SRC. You may need the assistant for programs. You may need somebody else to get the discussion. If you need to have a discussion, you need the right people in the room. So keep in mind that these teams are the key formal, and I stress the word formal, mechanism of communication between the Soil Science Division and the state and area soil staff. The reason I stress formal is that it's team. It's not going to meet, maybe it'll meet quarterly. I mean, you got to figure that out, but it's not going to meet every other day. And it's probably not, and it may not meet, the meeting may not be scheduled when you need to talk. And so regular informal communication between all these folks is highly encouraged. Don't wait for the next meeting. If you got an issue, pick up a phone, type an email. You know what? As I said earlier, and I'm going to say 4 or 5 times before we're done today, communication remains the key for this to work and for all of us to be successful in TSS. Okay, next question. What is the status of national efforts to develop a mechanism to update soils data for FSA to inform the CRP rankings? I'm pleased to report that I had to change the tense on this item yesterday. It was going to be Paul Fennell is developing. Now I can honestly say that Paul Fennell has developed a draft SDMA query to provide this information, and he is working with selected states to evaluate. You may be on, if you're on this call, thank you for your help. If you are interested in taking a look at what Paul's developed, drop Paul Fennell an email. What we think, and Paul's been working very, very closely with FSA on this, what we're hoping is that this query will allow for a single download. Information goes to FSA, and that whole thing of you folks having to go through county by county to update information is going to be a thing of the past. So, I am pleased to report progress on that. The next question, not so much. The next question, is there any progress on coordination between the receipt for services requirement and TSS reporting? And unfortunately, my response to that is no, there isn't any progress. Pam Thomas and I are still trying to coordinate with the request receipt for services group at the national level. We completely understand if it looks like that, looks like you're reporting the same stuff twice. We understand that. Gotcha. We're trying to fix that, but we're just having people have 16 different jobs, and just getting the right people in the room to have the conversation has been difficult. So we're on it. We're working on it. Do the best you can at this point, and we'll keep you posted. Okay. Next question. What is the status of resource soil scientist positions nationwide? Basically, all I can say is that they are highly variable in terms of number, grade, and supervision. It's all over the map as to how states are handling their RSSs. I could also add posting to that. Some RSS positions in states have been vacant for years. Some positions are getting on the street the day after somebody leaves. The Soil Science Division strongly encourages states to hire resource soil scientists. We want more soil scientists, the merrier. And we support, we as the division support an integrated technical soil services program coordinated by the state soil scientist. The state conservationist controls state staffing decisions, and that's that's how many resource soil scientists, who they report to. That's not our, there be dragons. That is a decision by the state conservationist, and all we can say is, we certainly as a division recommend that states have adequate resource soil scientists on staff to meet technical soil services needs, and that resource soils program, that technical soil services program, is coordinated by the state soil scientist. I can cite examples throughout the U.S. that are all over the map. Again, communication seems to be the key. If everybody's talking, things work. If people quit talking, or if people aren't willing to talk, that's where things break down. Next one is an issue that keeps coming back up, and maybe I can clarify a little bit. Hopefully I won't add any more mud to the water. We know the Soil Science Division has committed 15% of time to CTA support, and that the division receives CTA funding. How should this be implemented at the state and local level? I talked to Pam Thomas about this again today, and if Pam's on the teleconference, she can pop in if I mess this up. But the way it was explained to me and the way we've discussed it at the national level is that the 15% CTA is for the national program. We understand that TSS needs and staff skill sets differ across the country. 15% should be seen as a guideline, not as an absolute to be applied to every employee in every office. Communication and coordination between the soil survey regional directors and the state soil scientists is the key to success. And as I mentioned earlier, staff should charge their time in web TCAS as per instructions from their supervisors. There are many reasons why time gets charged in web TCAS. And so I'm not going to make a blanket statement about how your time should be charged in web TCAS. That needs to be coordinated with the regional directors, working with Pam on the Soil Science Division side. Needs to be coordinated by state soil scientists, working with the appropriate budget officers and those folks on the state side. So I cannot make blanket pronouncements. I come back to the fourth bullet here, that communication and coordination remains the key to making this work. Next question, what role or roles should soil scientists play in soil health related activities? The short and sweet answer is any and all roles with which they are comfortable. Soil scientists need to be involved. Soil health is a key agency national initiative, as you're all well aware. And I remain firmly convinced, and I don't think I get disagreement on this teleconference, that soil scientists, whether it be they state soil scientists, resource soil scientists, soil survey region soil scientists, MLR SSO staff, or any other soil scientists we happen to have on the payroll, can and should provide valuable information and expertise to help soil health be a success. Do what you can, be involved. If you aren't invited to the meeting, crash it. We need to be in the game. Next question, this has come up. What is the role of Soil Science Division staff in compliance determinations for wetlands at HEL? And there is an official memo that's awaiting final approval and release. I confirmed with Roy that it's lost and that it's fighting its way through DC right now. But basically what the memo says is that appropriately trained Soil Science Division staff can complete all of the technical aspects of compliance determinations. However, because determination of compliance is an authority delegated to the state conservationist, Soil Science Division staff who report up a different line in the chain of command cannot sign the forms. Those forms indicating whether a parcel is in compliance or not must be signed by someone. That official determination must be signed by someone who reports to the state con. And that is a bureaucratic requirement. And that has been, Roy's done a lot of work, Roy and folks up at the National have done a lot of work to clarify this, and there is a memo in the works that will go to all the state cons to make sure everybody's on the same page. I think this is the last of our submitted questions, so get your pens ready for anything else we can cover. But the question was asked of how does TSS integrate or not integrate with the increased involvement of Soil Science Division staff in work supported by reimbursable agreements? First point I'd make is it's no secret that reimbursable agreements are here to stay. We are going to, budget's tighter. This is the way the world works. It's highly likely that soil staff, particularly soil staff of the Soil Science Division, are going to be doing more work on reimbursable agreements. In the past, most of our reimbursable agreements have been for soil survey work. That, BLM is reimbursing the agency to survey these hundreds of thousands of acres in Nevada or whatever. NPS is paying NRCS to get a survey of blank national park. There are local discussions underway, I just found out, for agreements for other purposes. And I'm good with that. That's good. Hey, why not? Keep in mind that, that agreements are for the provision of products or services, not for specific staff. NRCS doesn't sign an agreement that Jane will survey blank national park. NRCS signs an agreement that a survey of blank national park will be conducted, and you will get a survey at the end. Given that, staff primarily being paid through reimbursable funds can do TSS. Obviously, you don't charge the reimbursable funds for the TSS, but those staff can work on other things besides the reimbursable project as a portion of their time. I completely understand that balancing staff workload and multiple priorities all the time is always hard. And when a reimbursable agreement or agreements are involved, that just adds another layer of complication. I understand this is difficult, and I am confident that this needs to be done on a local or regional basis. I am not going to sit here in Lincoln, Nebraska and tell you how to do your jobs when I don't know the specifics of the local situation. So again, communication, coordination, there are priorities. We have a limited number of people and a lot of stuff to do. And tough decisions need to be made. And if you as the state soil scientist or the regional director is making those tough decisions because that's your job, you're not going to get second guessed from the national office for making a well thought out decision that reflects what the key priorities, what the resources you have available, and the key priorities. Obviously, I'm the national leader for TSS. I want to see people provide as much TSS as possible. I think it's real important, or I wouldn't have taken the job. But I realize that we've all got a lot of things to do. It's a balancing act. And so, Eddie, do what you can, and we'll keep the good work going. Okay, it looks like we've got about 5 minutes or a little bit longer if the clock's correct over here on the wall. So can we catch we got a question?
Yeah, we've got quite a few questions that have been submitted to the Q&A tab. And remind people that's how the best way to submit a question to us. We'll take those as the time allows and follow up with you separately afterwards. So the first one, I'll just let you review that one.
Okay. Yeah, good question. No, the question is from a resource soil scientist, and they say they do 100% TSS. Their state con doesn't require that TSS be reported in NASAS, and why should I bother reporting it? Fair question. Obviously, your state con's your boss, and I'm not. And I agree. I understand that. All I can ask is, and all I can say is that at the national level, my job is I'm charged with making the case for TSS at the national level. The more information I have about the great amount of TSS and the great work that's going on in TSS out there throughout the 50 states and the territories and the Commonwealths, the better information I have to make my case. I know everybody's busy. I know reporting is some work, but if you're able to report, I really appreciate it. If you make a decision that that's just something you can't find the time to do, then I understand, and keep up the great work of TSS. What I want is the work going on. That's priority number one. And the reporting is great, but I'd rather have you doing the work. If the choice of reporting versus doing the work, do the work.
And the next one is not really a question, but a comment, just thanking us for adding the hours column.
Well, glad we could help. Our MLRA soil surveys reporting TSS for SDJR projects. SDJR projects are typically not a TSS activity. Will there be guidance provided as to which programs TSS activities should be reported under? Yes, I'll try to put some helpful hints. Again, the best bet as far as program, in general, it's CTA unless proven otherwise. But if you are out in the field, for instance, with a conservation planner, and you're doing an on-site and you're chatting and ask the conservation planner, what's this for? And they'll probably be more than happy to tell you that, oh yeah, I'm working with Farmer Jones on an EQIP contract, or this we're looking at WRP. We're looking at at this being a potential ASAP now used to be WRP site for wetland restoration, or something else. So use the best information you got. Oh great, we got an offer from one of our assistant state soil scientists that he's going to work on customizing the spreadsheet that for use in his state. So hey, go for it. Much appreciated. And work with Kevin. Give Kevin Godsey a holler, and I'm sure he'd be happy to work with you.
And then have him posted. And then have Milton posted.
Yeah, and then Milton. Yeah, thanks. That's Milton Cortez. Not meaning to hide your name, Milton, but yeah, if you got something to share that you think would be useful for other people, please post it to the SharePoint. Got a question. Can you give us your opinion of states and areas now replacing a resource soil scientist? Personally, I heard from area staff. Yeah. This is an issue that we are well aware of at the national level. We are doing our darndest to sell the need for soil scientists. That area resource soil scientists and the input they provide is vitally important. Part of the push behind Soils Job Approval Authority is to provide that might potentially provide a very specific need, a documented, you must have a soil scientist to do this. But you're exactly right. Exactly right, Ryan, that this is an issue. We are working very, very hard at the national level. I was just informed at the national leadership that the Soil Survey Division Director, Acting Director Luis Hernandez, and Roy Vick and Pam and the DC staff met with the regional conservationists. That's the 4 people who are the state conservationist bosses, and gave really the sales pitch. Really gave a sales pitch to the regional conservationists yet again about the important roles that soil scientists play, and felt like they walked out of that meeting with some positive feedback that would be conveyed to the state conservationists. So, we're doing what we can. I wish I could say I can't control what people do, but we're giving it the old college try. My understanding, TSS object is supposed to be used as a business plan for TSS. It is designed that way. If the TSS object works for you as a place for the TSS business plan, go for it. I'm all good. If something else works for you, again, I don't want to legislate from Lincoln as to how you put your business plan together. The key is that the business plan is a way to organize TSS activities and to keep track of who's doing what, and to make sure that we coordinate our efforts. A question, when the public requests TSS, who are you proposing response to the request, the states or the regional soil staff? Does the public know the difference? Again, this is from John Beck. Again, John, I'm proposing that somebody respond. I think that there needs to be communication at the local level about how we want to handle those requests. My feeling is the public should call whoever they're comfortable calling, and that the request should be routed to the person who can do the job. And if the request goes to the MLRA Soil Survey Office and they don't feel that they can provide the assistance at that time for whatever reason, the request needs to be routed to the state soil scientist or to a local resource soil scientist. If the request comes into the state soil scientist and they don't have the resources to deal with it, and they need assistance from the regional office, from the Soil Survey Regional Office, from the Soil Survey MLRA Soil Survey Office, that needs to be coordinated. So, again, you need to find the mechanism that works for you.
I think we have time for a couple more questions.
We've got an issue with. I see we have an issue with the URL. We'll double check that and make sure we get the good one. Make sure we get the correct one in the final thing that goes out. Yes.
Question about the presentation that'll be posted to our YouTube channel within the coming week and be available there. So you can just go to YouTube and search for the subject. It'll come up. It'll be publicly available.
And if we do have to make any corrections, like with the URLs, I think there's a way we can put those in the notes to the in the notes on the YouTube video. Leslie, did the TSS numbers include the erosion factor refresh? No, they did not, to my knowledge. Right. Yes. Question from a M. Payne. For reporting TSS and NASIS, should applications to EQIP be coded as EQIP or CTA? I've been under the impression that everything is CTA until someone is under contract, then it's EQIP, but soils investigations are often done before contracting. Yes, and this is what I was trying, this is the exact situation I was trying to get at when I talked about the difference between reporting for soils purposes and reporting in WebTCAS. This statement is 100% true for time coding. You cannot code time to a program until you got a contract. At least you never could, and I don't think you can. I still don't think you can. What I would like to see us do on the soil side, just to provide a fair representation of the assistance soils is providing to Farm Bill programs, is that I'd like to see folks in NASIS code this exact situation that this person is describing as supporting EQIP, because it is. Now, it can't be coded in WebTCAS that way, but for the purposes of TSS reporting, I'd like to see that tied to EQIP. We have a question about requiring lat long for TSS reporting, and this would allow TSS to be reported spatially. Yeah, it would. We made the decision for 2015 that to go with a very minimum data set and have the only spatial reporting be by state. Obviously, you're more than welcome to report lat long and encouraged to do so. If you're out there with a GPS and you got it, go for it. Because it does, and you maybe, and states, if particular states want to experiment with requiring this for activities in their state, I'm all good with that. And actually, if a state or two wants to jump in and try that and let me know how it goes, that'd be great.
Well, Mike, we've reached our hour, but if we just have a few more questions, it's up to you if you want to take those.
I mean, I don't mind
now,
continuing. If it looks like it looks like we got 5 more questions. Let's try to get it done. We have a question. What is the proper protocol line of command for providing TSS? Isn't the field office responsible for requesting assistance, and that the MLRA shouldn't freelance on their own to provide TSS whenever, wherever, without coordinating with the field office and the ASTC for field operations? Goes back, yes. It goes back to my point about communication. I don't like the use of the term freelance, but yes, everybody needs to be informed. I don't think we have a lot of situations out there where MLRA offices are providing TSS or anybody's providing TSS without coordinating with the field office. But if it's happening, it shouldn't be. We all need to stay on the same page, and we all need to talk. Again, I don't want to sit here and legislate from Lincoln about exactly how that goes, because different stuff's going to work for different people. But I can't stress enough the need for communication. Question, what policy do we have on NRCS providing TSS and taking work from a consultant? We provide TSS equally to anyone and everyone who asks. If that quote-unquote takes work from a consultant, that's, but we also provide TSS to anyone and everyone who asks in the order that request was received. And oftentimes people go to a consultant because, in my experience, people go to a consultant for 2 reasons typically. One is a time